Okay. Hello. Who else here? Hello and welcome. Everybody getting in okay? Lance is back here checking if anybody's having any trouble. Isabel. Yeah. Isabel's in the middle of the night, so she has to set her time.
Oh my goodness.
Gets up to stay with us all night long. She gets up and sits for class at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's commitment.
Can't do it. And there's Tim and Kim, our superhero. Yeah, Kim, this is Dr. Boz. Here's our hero. She's our fearless leader. So I get to meet her. Come on in and say hi for a minute, Kim. Gotta unmute. There you go.
Okay, we're there.
Hey. I was just telling her it's part of your story, Tim. So if you want to jump in and share it really quick, I'd love her to hear from you.
Okay, October 17th, I started on your program, Dr. Boz, and I was at 284 pounds, I believe, at that point in time, and I had started a year ago on my own and had only lost 20 pounds, and since then now I am down to a total loss of 128 pounds, and everything on my body is improved. The arthritis is almost 99% healed, and eczema is cleared up. It improved my vision. I sleep sounder. I have lots of energy. I'm not hungry. Toenails and fingernails are softer, and there's not much else in my life that hasn't been affected by your program.
Oh,
And I really,
wow.
I really appreciate it.
Mm. Well, honestly, it's testimonies like that where I have in past businesses spent, advertising money for my clinic, or, I even had a nonprofit for a while where the advertising budget was insane. And I'm like, does it do any good? Does advertising do any good? And maybe that just tells you where, maybe it was the advertising, I don't know. But it wasn't until people shared stories about whether or not their bodies got better that's the best advertising. Like, I quit paying the advertisers in that aspect because it is stories like that where I think it must be that for years physicians have written prescriptions and made promises, and I'm part of that group where this is what the textbook says should happen. And patients are diligent. They follow the rules. They really do try to improve, but the outcomes are terrible. And of course, if you've read the book any way you can, that transition in those first few chapters where I'm like, yeah, I said that to my mom too. And I totally promised her that this was going to happen. And then I threw it out the window, and look what happened. And it isn't where all of medicine belongs, but I do think that the pathway to health has an undertone of, there are some success stories out there. They don't happen overnight, but they are pretty darn rapid when you start following the numbers and doing things in a way that, even at the age of, my mom was 71, dang, she turned her life around and was the healthiest she's ever been.
Yes, I'm 66, and I was almost in a wheelchair 6 months ago from the arthritis, and I am completely 100% off every medication I've been taking for 15 years. They're all gone.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
He's our little walking testimony at church. So
Wow.
So Tim, I just put Dr. Boz on the spot and tell her we're going to get her up to our new church as soon as you get it finished. So you need to be working away. We're going to bring her to our little community.
I came from there to here right now. So back to the job after we're off here.
Hey, everybody's going to fall in love with her like we did. So it's all good. I think if we could get the whole church and our whole community going, how awesome that would be.
Yep. Start with our church. There are a lot of them there that need this program.
Absolutely. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Another good one we had, Lance's dad is 82 and he went through the whole program, and I'm telling you, he works circles around 40-year-old men.
Oh, wow.
So it's just neat to see. So we're just so blessed to have every age group, every different problem. I'm the one that seems to be the slowest and won't kick in, but everybody else is doing great. So I'm so happy for all of you. Kim's
I feel 20 years younger.
You look it too, Tim.
Oh, wow.
Kim's famous words were, "I can do this, but I am never going to fast."
Oh, yeah.
What fast are you on, Kim?
I say what?
What fast are you on?
Which number are
Well,
yours?
I
Are you on?
just got off the 72-hour fast after doing 8 and skipped a week. This is my second series of 72 hours,
Oh, that
which
is
I
so-
said I could not do it. And that's why we put Tammy off until my daughter said, you're doing it, because she was worried about our health. Since I've had cancer before, and then I deal with diverticulitis and all that, she wanted healing for us. Well, it's working its magic. So thank you.
Oh, that's brilliant. So congratulations. And I said those words too, just, so you know, I think every person, one of the most dangerous things about earlier today, we invited Tammy and Lance to come to my support group here in Tampa. And I was debriefing afterwards saying one of the most dangerous parts about a support group that's just open and not tiered, meaning are you at the beginning? Have you been keto adapted, or are you somebody who fasts? And the difference between those different tiers is you don't really understand how fearful you can be about the word fasting until you watch some of these new people who they're doing fine, they're doing great. And then somebody in the back of the room asks a fasting question, and then their eyes are like, what do you mean no food for 24? And you're like, just wait, don't say that. She's listening.
Yeah.
I really said, I think we almost need to make the support group for different levels.
Yeah.
So we actually divided ours up. When it got to one of them got really big, we would do a beginners and then break into the more advanced people, because that's exactly what we have with all of our people. You can see where people get to a certain level and then kind of stop there.
Yeah.
And
But I look forward to these fasts now, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but when I'm inviting people to do this diet with us, you do have to be careful when you do, like you said, say fast, because that just scares them away faster than anything. But, you know, I got to the point where I wanted to do it, and it's just working out great. So.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the success of that. And then I think it just reaffirms that when the human system is working well, the hunger doesn't rule your brain and life when you're really healthy. I mean, you look back over the, last few thousands of years, and those times where food wasn't available are very evident. And they didn't have a refrigerator with every 2 hours. They had, okay, today we fast because that's what we do. And once you kind of put your mind around that, it's step one. The other thing that I talk about in my my support group is when I went from calling it a fast at 12 hours or calling it a fast when I made it till supper time, and then really saying, okay, a fast is 36 hours. Really anything short of that is time restriction. That I failed until I coupled it with, I find someone else to pray about. I find someone else to say their pain is far greater than mine. Get out of my own headspace. Stop talking about little poor old me. That pity party is it's Satan trying to make this fast fail. But as soon as I have a list of people I pray for, a list of people that just need prayer. And when I keep them on the list and I don't focus on them, but when I fast, I pick someone and I pray about them. And when I find myself struggling, in fact, the fast that I don't do very well, I forgot to do it. I forgot to pick somebody at the beginning of the fast. So when you couple it with prayer, we're not the first ones to think of that. Every culture across the globe, when they've struggled in times where theirs wasn't maybe a choice to fast, but coupling fasting with prayer it's not a new thing. It's an old adage that stuck around for this many generations because it really does help and it does work, and displaces the pain a little.
Yep. Well, we're both proof here that your system works in its entirety, because I am right now just kind of hovering at step 8 and staying there, where Kim has progressed beyond me because of the church project. I've kind of fallen back and just living where I'm at on 8 for a little while, but just being on 8, I am continually losing weight. So, and feeling better. So, but I am anxious to progress to the 72-hour fast and see if I can completely heal my right hip, which is the has the worst amount of arthritis in it and heal it up completely.
Well, I will pray for you, and then I will stay in tune, stay in touch.
Yep.
Kim and Kim, we're just so proud of both of you. We love you guys. Can't wait to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doing awesome. Such a good example. Okay, some of the questions. I know we've had questions coming in. I see my Bubby sitting there staring at me. James is actually training for an Ironman and wants to know how to fuel, when to refuel, and how to refuel to make it through the whole full Ironman.
Awesome. So nice to meet you, James. The introduction is that you've had so you've been working out for years. Tell me how long ago some of those milestones were met, just so I can.
I've been following your program for since about December. Prior to that, we've tried numerous different remedies, I guess you could say. Nothing really worked well for us for an entirety or for a length of period. So we've been doing your program since December, had great results, no issues with that at all. We've done 872s and then cycled back to kind of start over, and we're going to build back up to a 72. That's kind of where we're at right now today. With exercise stuff, always been kind of in shape for the last probably 10 years, I guess. Signed up to do it's a half Ironman in Augusta, Georgia, in September. So we're about 6 months out. Now I'm getting into the how to refuel during an 8-hour exertion, because it takes about 8 hours to do a half Ironman. So during that 8 hours, normally it's a high carb, high sugar type intake. While you're doing that, of course, my body doesn't respond well to that now, because it's 0 carbs, or we're usually right around between 10 and 12 carbs a day. So we're pretty steadfast on making sure that we meet that goal for ourselves. So the problem I'm running into is to figure out how I'm going to be able to refuel during that time period.
Well, so it's a great question. They're probably pretty advanced for most of the other people, but I'm happy to enter into the discussion. So first of all, a couple of things. If you look for the research on this, the Ohio State, aren't you? You're from Ohio? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Ohio State is the ones with the most data on this. And let me think of the name of the researcher. Okay, Gary Taubes is not. He's the like journalist, but it'll come to me. Just give me a minute when I'm not trying to focus on it so hard about the name of the person who leads all this research. But anyway, he studies athletes. And I always like to tell one of the first things that he was able to prove was when he started working with long distance runners, they do the 100-mile race, where they start the race in the middle of the night in hopes that they, I want to say that it's like 30 some hours that they run for.
I actually have a good friend that does that.
Okay, so what's a typical 100-mile run last?
It's 30 to 35 hours, depending on the runner.
Okay, it's longer than a day, right?
Yes. Oh,
So
yes.
So he had this theory that if you were fueled by fat instead of fueled by carbs, you would have a higher performance. And one of the first places they tested it out was this 100-mile run. So he had a few athletes that had been in ketosis for a few weeks, and other ones that had been in ketosis for, I think, just under 4 months, like 3.5 months is when they ran their race. Now there was another set that was 18 months keto adapted, and we'll get to that in a second. But those first two outperformed everybody. They were the top of the leaderboard, were the people that were keto adapted. But the ones that were the 3.5 to 4 months keto adapted shaved so much time off of the race that it was the first photograph that had light at it, because they usually came in after sunset, that they were so much ahead of schedule that they took a picture of the winning moment. And the most remarkable part is it's the first photograph of this that's ever been during daylight. I mean, it was so many hours they shaved off of the race. And of course, part of that is the access to run a muscle is not just that the glucose is there to be delivered to the muscle. Once you run, get to that extreme level of exercise, you use up your glucose storage, yep, you're going to break down muscle, you're going to break down anything for fuel to keep going. But the
Yes.
rate at which you can contract those muscles is much smaller.
Mhm.
The beauty is that it doesn't take a lot of fat to produce the calories to sustain that energy level. However, you look at some of the elite athletes that, I mean, they're like they want to win the CrossFit games. Actually, I don't know about CrossFit games, but they want to win these endurance. I think they're mostly bike cyclists where
Mhm.
they exercise for like, again, 30 hours is a typical race. Like, I don't know where these people come from, but they like this.
Mhm.
And what the people at I just had his name on the tip of my tongue too. What the people in this research study looked at was replacing their fuel with ketones. The first kind of round of ketones that they used as their fuel replacement was the ketone salts. So that would be like beta hydroxybutyrate, which those are what most of the products those are what my products are made of, beta hydroxybutyrate.
Mhm.
The problem is to make them in powdered form, you have to take a liquid acid, which is beta hydroxybutyric acid, and you combine it with either sodium, potassium, chloride, magnesium, so you make a salt, you take a salt and you attach it to the acid, and that's what puts it in the powder form, which is much more, transferable. You can transport it, you can take it on a bike ride, put it in your water, that kind of stuff. However, too much salt over a short period of time gives you diarrhea. So the people who are using it for short term had a pretty good response until he got into these longer term athletes. And this is where there's quite a debate out there about using something called an ester, which is a chemistry name for a ketone ester. And if you look at, a serving of BHB is probably $2 to $3 on the market for one of the salts. But if you look at a serving for the ketone esters, it's like $20 a serving. I mean, it's insanely expensive. Maybe it was in the teens, but it was between $15 and $20 per serving. Like for 5 doses of this, it was over $100. And you're like, that isn't scalable. But for these athletes, they found that was a great way to do that. So the most important part about those exercise studies was if they went to keto in short term, and then because they would see people rise into the top of that leaderboard and they're like, I want to do keto, I want to do keto, I want to do keto, because they wanted to win. But if they had transitioned to keto within just a few weeks before the race, their mitochondria were still in kindergarten. They really just had barely, gotten proficient at using a ketone. Their ability to fuel their bodies off of that energy from fat was far inferior. In fact, that brings you to the final study that looks at what did those athletes look like when they were keto adapted for 18 months. And the answer comes from a really painful thing that we do to athletes. We take a biopsy of their muscle that rumor has it they don't use lidocaine. They just biopsy the muscle. Oh my goodness, who says yes to this? But that's what the studies report. I've never witnessed it, but apparently it's true. I see Alex there nodding his head because I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is what they did, which is they do not anesthetize them. Anyway, so they take the muscle biopsy and you look at it under the microscope. In a glucose-fueled muscle, you will find lots of glycogen. In fact, as soon as the glycogen storage is empty, that glucose-dependent muscle replenishes the glycogen stored in the muscle. And they do this this is what happens when you're training for a long race. When they're training, is they've learned that if they can fill those muscles more and more and more with glycogen, then they lasted longer. Okay, and that's really where most of that research had been for the previous 30 years in exercise peak performance. When you keto adapted them, if you looked at the glycogen storage versus the triglyceride storage, meaning the strings of fat that were stored inside a muscle, and they were used for they're used as fuel. They don't even turn them into ketones. It just is fatty oxidation as the fuel source. But you have to be keto adapted or fat adapted in order to use that fuel source in a muscle cell. So in those people that were glucose dependent, they had a few of those triglycerides present, and they were way off in the corner of the cell. They weren't anywhere near the mitochondria, which is the place that burns the fuel. What was near the mitochondria is a whole bunch of the glycogen or the stored glucose. All right, so now get to the 12-week people that have been adapted for that 3 to 4 month time before they did the muscle biopsy. And you could see that, oh, we've got less of the glycogen storage. We got a little bit more of the fat storage, but it still wasn't that superior. When you got to the 18 months of keto adaptation, meaning they've been training for the last 2 years, 1.5 years in a ketogenic state, inside their muscles, they had very little glycogen storage, but they had a ton of fat storage. And I don't mean just like your fat cells are full. I mean that your cell can run off of fat, and the fat is right there inside the muscle.
Mhm.
So the reason I go through that whole explanation is to say, depending on how well you've been keto adapted and how consistently you've been in ketosis, that process of delivering fuel when you need it the most, your body will never forget how to use a glucose, but it can be lazy or ill prepared for using ketones or fat as their fuel.
Okay.
The only advantage that you can create is you can stuff glycogen in those cells, but you're still going to run out of fuel in a long race like that. So
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
where they glucose, they take the gels and do all the stuff that
You just know he's very OCD, so he doesn't waver. Like he's
very consistent.
Yeah.
Well,
he's been consistent since we left last time.
oh, that's really
So,
great.
Never misses.
Because that's really where they need to be in order to have that advantage on the race, which is
Okay.
how well do your cells use fat? That's where the answer lies. You can see people that what they really needed to replace during the race was they needed electrolyte replacement. They needed fluid. But
Yes, ma'am.
they didn't need the fuel. It was stored inside their muscles. If
Okay.
they needed fuel, they added the ketone esters. And
Ketone
again,
esters.
I would practice this during your race because some people took in those ketone esters and they just got diarrhea. I mean, their gut just wasn't ready for it. So obviously that would really ruin your race.
Well, yeah, that'd make for a long day.
So there are plenty of people who have learned to sip on the ketone ester or the ketone salts. Again, they're 1,000,000 times cheaper. And I mean that practically 1,000,000 times cheaper when you look at not just performing on them, but exercising on them and seeing if I put a little bit of ketones in my drink. What's the benefit of that is that comes with the sodium, potassium, those salts are coupled to the ketone to make the powder. So you are getting electrolytes as well as ketones when you take any of the supplements that are on the market. What I've learned is each person has a dose that really they figure out on how to dose their ketones throughout a race.
Okay.
But the truth is, you probably, if you're really keto adapted, there's just, unless your body fat is less than 2%, which is unhealthy.
No.
Right. You've got fat. You'll mobilize it. And especially if you're keto adapted and you've been practicing that, it's amazing how well they perform.
I'm usually around about 12% body fat and using a little blood thing. Now I haven't been doing the testing my blood because I've been in training for the last 2 weeks, but normally training work wise, normally I'm usually at 2.5 to 4 ketones in the morning when I wake up.
That's amazing. So yeah, you're very well keto. Your body is producing that energy from fat. Obviously you're fasted in the morning, you've been sleeping. That production of energy is a really high performance level. And that's powerful.
What level of ketones or flavor of ketones would you like me to drop on the way home? You need
Whichever.
stay stocked up. Just
the one that I think most of my athletes have told me about is that the one with the highest concentration in my brand is the raspberry.
Okay.
It is, but it's also very tart. And I use it for my my cancer patients. I use it for people who are having seizure or brains that really need a high level of ketones very quickly. I also use it because I'm cheap. So I want a little amount of ketone powder to give me the ketones I want. So I like it for that reason. But for the people who need to sip, they're trying to like test their system out.
Mhm.
And I use this a lot in my insulin resistant patients where they're like, doc, I don't make any ketones. I can't figure it out. I made ketones for the first week and now my ketones are 0.4 or 0.5. My ketones are low. My ketones are low. I'm like, yeah, you're insulin resistant. You're stuck between making too much glucose that your liver will not make ketones. So they have lower ketones and too high of a glucose. And it would be several of the fasts that would correct that. But there's a lot of psychology and emotional things that happen when you start asking people to fast. And sometimes their metabolism isn't strong enough to fast. They start to fast and they shut down their metabolism because of what insulin has done over the years. That is the case where you say, you need to be sipping on ketones for like 2 weeks. Just trust me that having ketones in circulation sends a message to your mitochondria to produce ketones, and you're stuck. You can't make the ketones. As soon as you make the ketones, then it's going to tell your liver to make more. But you're stuck in the middle here because of what insulin has done. So when they supplement those ketones, not only does their appetite suppress, but their mitochondria within the liver make more and more ketones over time. So by the time they get done with the 2 weeks of sipping, they have charged mitochondria, especially those from their liver, and they just transition right through that insulin resistance instead of months spent. You got to be consistent. You got to be consistent. You got to be, and I say those words, I feel like a broken record. You got to be consistent. You got to be consistent. I'm like, all right, just sip on ketones. So when I have them sipping on ketones, I push them to get the cucumber lemon one because it's a much lighter flavor. There aren't as many ketones per scoop, but you pee out most of these when they first start because their body doesn't know what to do with it. It's the act of it circulating, it's signaling what happens within the liver that triggers the next step. So again, something that you would be looking at is you don't need to replace all of your fuel. You just need to know what dose you could get away with while running and not give you diarrhea. So I would push you towards the cucumber lemon flavor because of really easier on the palate and it's not so tart. And you'll see that it's the other thing that I've had some of the athletes do is they take MCT oil. Again, you do not want to practice that when you're running.
Yeah, I found that one. Yeah, I've had experience with that one.
Right. So
Just leave it at that.
right, it's real.
Yeah.
So now it is a trainable process, but I have walked many people through this that it's slow. The reason I don't have buckets that I sell of MCT oil, I have little MCT capsules and I have them bite the capsule and swallow one. And when that doesn't cause diarrhea, go to 2. And then you get up, my husband every day, his family has a history of Alzheimer's, and we know that this is one of the best supplements for brains that have either been damaged or have a predilection for Alzheimer's, and he takes 6 of those a day. He doesn't get diarrhea. He takes them every day like clockwork, but he did not start there. And he does it because his wife tells him to.
Good husband. You got him trained well, right?
Very smart.
Good training. Okay, does that help?
Thank you.
I'll bring
Yes,
you some
ma'am.
stones and start training with them now so you don't have poops on your race. Okay.
I will. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Love you, Bub.
Love you.
Okay, let's go down through some questions. When do we begin to worry about fat grams after we are fat adapted to make our body look for the stored fat?
Right. So when you look at the replacement of fat, again, at the beginning of the ketogenic journey, we want the insulin lower. The insulin lower then turns into, if you notice, there's a few very strategic things on that keto continuum. And one of them is that there isn't a timer that's exact on when people become fat adapted. I really do wait for them to say, oh my gosh, I missed a meal. And that accidental, and I know that it's not an accident in everybody, but really that, oh my gosh, I was so busy yesterday, I forgot to eat. Before you're keto adapted, you think that's not possible. You think these people are lying. Like there's no way I could miss a meal. Everybody thinks about a meal every 3 to 4 hours. That's just what happens. But when the body can recruit fat out of storage and deliver it to the cells that need it, specifically the astrocytes, the brain, and it stays functioning where they don't really get, maybe there was a little waiver of a little something, something, but not enough to distract them into stopping and eating. That process is truly when I start to say, okay, your hormones, and I don't just mean the ghrelin and leptin, which run hunger and appetite drive. I mean cortisol, I mean testosterone, I mean the other adrenal fat adapted or fat built hormones. They are all kind of whimpering around when you're in a high state of inflammation. And when I was trying to not use the word keto, my husband kept saying, you cannot call it a keto diet. Nobody likes the word keto. And everybody thinks it sounds too wonky. This is, of course, in 2015, before the whole world knew what keto was. And I kept saying, well, we could call it an anti-inflammatory diet, because that's really the core of what it's doing. You start out with, what makes you see an internist for the next 30 years or for the last 40 years of your life is this chronic build of inflammation. And when the inflammation is there, next season it's a little higher, and next season it's a little higher. And then they come in and say, Doc, I have arthritis in every joint. My autoimmune is taking out my thyroid. My joints don't work. Everything hurts. We put them on the ketogenic diet, and their inflammation goes from here to here. So they do feel better. But as that ketogenic diet continues, and especially when you really work towards, the level where Tammy repaired nerves, that is really lowering that inflammation at a cellular level. So when they first start on the ketogenic diet, I don't talk anything about the types of fat. I think you can sit there and eat lard all day, or butter, whatever it is you're eating, even if there's some trans fats in it. I know those are the enemies of the state when it comes to the ketogenic diet. It is so much better than the carbs they're eating that I just don't think about, just don't worry about it. Put the blinders on, focus on 20 total carbs. And really, I'm trying to set the chemistry to lower the first layer of inflammation. But then there's other rules. And so as you look at how do you journey through the ketogenic diet, I didn't magically come up with the keto continuum. I studied patients in my clinic that succeeded, and they would move along a continuum. We would keep pushing them to the next level. And sometimes that person that wasn't progressing was so focused that I have to have this much fat, have to have this much fat, have to have this much fat. And they were putting their fat in at 5 meals a day because, I don't know, it felt good. That's what it's keto, it's keto, it's keto. So the amount of fat they were consuming turned into their insulin, their inflammatory rate was still probably only halfway lowered to what you wanted to get it to. So as they progress through a successful ketogenic process, I am always amazed at how well that the process of the human body resets. They'll be at the ketogenic diet for a while. They'll be at an anti-inflammatory rate. They lower things. And the way they're kind of stalled out is their ketones are low. They stop making as much of that fat-based fuel. So that's where you say, oh, that Dr. Boz ratio in the morning is tanking. It's above 100 again, or maybe it's, your glucose is in the 80s, but you're making 0.4 ketones. So you have a really rotten Dr. Boz ratio. And that says, oh, you need to stress that metabolism a little bit. And one of the ways that you see early in the ketogenic continuum is, okay, put your meals in 2 buckets. That's where the 2 meals per day. I want you to stay there for at least a week. Most people, it takes them longer than a week to do that. And during that process, what I'm really showing them is there's these times of absence, none, 0. And then we put it into 8 hours. And then we point out that heavy cream in the morning filled with fat is not your friend anymore, even though it was absolutely necessary for the first season for them to get used to. What do you mean I eat all this fat? Their body kind of goes like, what? That's blowing their mind for what they've been told. And then once they've got it into 8 hours, then we say, okay, get the coffee clean. If you're going to count your coffee, then your timer starts then. So now your 8 hours was running out at 3 p.m. And that means zip it, no Tic Tacs, no cough drops, no gum, nothing but salt and water after that time. And when I look at, the question is how much fat is too much fat? What you're looking at when you really work through this protocol isn't just to say, oh, get them below 20 and then you stop thinking. No, get them below 20 carbs per day and then you'll stabilize. And then you're going to go to the next level. And as much as fasting sounds like this awful place to be, it is the place our body heals the quickest. And I would never ask anybody to be there until they're truly able to recruit fuel out of their fat and turn it into energy in their, for their brain's purposes, for the body's purposes. And that is not a default. That doesn't just show up happening without you exercising your systems. And the other story I like to tell about people eating too much fat is just as a show of hands, raise your hand if you know Sean Baker and his program. Yeah, he's great. I love him. He's also another rebel physician that fought the system. And, if you know his backstory, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is powerful to watch his coaches as they answer questions. And so they've had me on as a guest a couple times, and one of their coaches was asking about, I get, she was stalled, and I asked what she was doing. She's at 1 meal a day, and she would get to her 1 meal a day, and it was just like gluttony. I mean, she's like, I eat, well, it's only the only time I get to eat in a day. And so she would just eat so much. And she's like, it's not hurting me, is it? I said, well,
Still numbers.
right. So there is a point where I said, do you know what foie gras is? And maybe I don't say it as French as you're supposed to, but that's that, duck liver or goose liver that's fatty, right? And I'm like, have you ever seen how they make the geese have that fatty of a liver? And if you've seen that, it's an awful scene where they practically put a hose down the goose's neck and fill them full of fat. But it's almost like a gluttonous delivery of fat. And sure enough, it puts that fat into storage in the liver, and we pay high dollar for that foie gras.
One way to get the
Right.
fired.
And I told this lady, guess what? You do not want to be the goose liver. Okay. Just because you have an hour to eat doesn't mean that you overeat to a gluttonous level. You should be able to eat to a level of satiety or feeling satisfied. And that should feel okay. If you struggle with I just can't feel, I feel satisfied, but then I'm really hungry at about 20 hours. Like, well, then put 2 smaller sections of food and open your eating window back up to 4 hours. Of course, eat a can of sardines at the beginning of those hours, because that fixes all problems. And then that meal later has less levels of just gluttonous consumption of fat, because that isn't really the answer. When I really want to prove to them, when I want to give them like, hey, here's some evidence. You don't need to take my word for it. Check your own fat makeup. And that is to look at that omega-3 test that some of you might know about, where it's an at-home test. You can order it from your physician, but my favorite part about where medicine is going is the best tests, and the people that are leading the industry allow the patients to order their own tests, to collect their own tests at home, mail them in for assessment or evaluation. And when you're studying fat-based things, it's actually very easy, because you can check the skin or the lining of your red blood cells. So this test has you prick your finger and you drip blood onto a sponge, and then the sponge dries, and you register it online and you mail it in. And there's an analysis that says, let me look at those, your red blood cells are made up of biphospholipid layers of fat. And you can study the strings of fat, saying, well, which fats ended up in your red blood cells? And the place those red blood cells got it, which are only 100 days old, maybe 120 if you're real lucky. So they're about 3 months old. So you can say, in the last 3 months, how well has this patient been consuming the fats that are linked to a healthy brain, that are linked to a healthy heart? And these studies aren't like the studies they did on statins, where they do some funny business with the numbers. They really have a clear connection to the higher the omega-3s are in your cells, the less heart attacks they have. There is a linear response. And sardines have a bunch of omega-3s in them.
Alex, if I could do them, you could do them. You got me doing them. Lance has me doing them. If I can gag them down, so can you. Suck it up, big boy.
A lot of mustard on that.
Mustard's
just not
okay.
enough
Mustard's
mustard.
fine. Put some mayonnaise
Sorry, I
on
didn't
it.
mean to
So
crash it, but
I'm now making bacon grease mayonnaise to put on my sardines with some celery to dip pork rinds in them to try to get them down.
that Caesar
the
salad
sardine
must be
is real.
really good. That's all I can say.
But we literally came down with 20 cans of sardines again.
Oh, that's beautiful. See, honestly, though, if you look at those tests for omega-3, again, I mean, they cost about $100, so it's not cheap. I'm telling you, it is absolutely what I tell my patients to do. If you're looking for the link and you go to bozmd.com, go to Dr. Boz favorites and you can click on the link. There's a little bit of a discount code there, but they're pretty expensive. So but you don't need to go to the doctor, and you can check yourself and then check yourself again. And I just think that's where medicine's going, is to empower people with these markers that really do improve the outcomes of their health. And it isn't often found in traditional medicine that we're getting some of the best answers. The innovators in medicine, like this company that I'm talking about, is actually, I've shared this story a few times, but I just think it's God helping me. I was trying to find a way to study cholesterol or look at cholesterol fats, because I get this question a lot. Doc, my cholesterol's doing this, 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 and this. And I'm like, oh, cholesterol panels are so messy because it has to do with this plus that minus this and this. They don't measure this. They don't measure that. They add to, okay. So this is a much clearer path saying, what is your level of omega-3? And you can check that in your red blood cells, the skin of your red blood cells. So when I was looking up at these papers and I'm reading about this Dr. Harris and Dr. Harris and Dr. Harris and Dr. Harris, and I'm like, and then I go to look him up, and he lived in my town, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He was on the faculty for the University of South Dakota School of Medicine. I'm like, that Dr. Harris? That Dr. Harris on 12th Street? You're kidding. He's in my own town. So I just like, oh, I'm going to drive over there and have this long conversation with Dr. Harris. And I did.
Okay.
So anyway, give him all the praise. But if you're looking to the link, I do all of my, I mean, that is where medicine is going. Reward the innovators, put the energy towards the test, and check yourself.
Okay. We have a few ladies, a couple different people that are wondering, that are getting down to 1 meal a day and worrying about the amount of calories, the OMAD, and if they can't handle that much nutrition in one, trying to get them in high density nutrition foods. So that's 1 meal a day, high density nutrition, and they're worried about not getting enough nutrition in that one meal.
Oh yeah, your gut is very well designed. So here's some tests to say, are you ready for 1 meal a day? When you eat the 1 meal a day, do you get diarrhea afterwards? Okay, so what you're looking at there is how efficient has your gut lining become at absorbing, and I mean that word specifically, absorbing some of the high density nutrition and digesting the rest of it. So absorption happens in a very small section of that GI tract. This is where that specific oil of C8 and C10, these medium chain triglycerides, come from. It is in this section of high density nutrition that most of those go into the portal vein and do not require the process that filters them through the lymph system. So the lymph system is digested. Okay, the food goes in, it goes into this through the lymph system. The lymph system says, oh, this is a toxin, get rid of that, or this needs to be detoxified. It is a safety mechanism for our system. Medium chain triglycerides and other high density nutritions are absorbed. Now, of interest, I think it's very interesting how most of those are fat. Okay, it's not an accident in design either, that if you look at where our nutrition has come from in the past, these high density nutritions, your body will find those morsels that you're supposed to absorb and deliver them. Now, the caveat to that is if you show up to the ketogenic diet with a gut that's not working right. Now, as much as I hate this term, the world calls this a leaky gut. Like, oh, the gut is not leaky, but it's okay. It's a leaky gut because I give up. Everybody knows what a leaky gut is when I say it, but it means that the cells no longer, bind tightly. They have spaces between them. And I have a couple of shorts that I've put out recently to say, yes, that's what's happening, is the cells separated and this is what happens at first, second, third, and then there's an ulcer. You do a scope from the GI doctor and he's like, oh, you have ulcers, you have ulcers. And what do? They put you on a bunch of medicines and some steroids. I'm like, okay, we need you to not have that problem. in the next 10 years. And yes, the medications will take care of the problem short term. I don't want you to say that that's going to hurt you. But long term, this doesn't get you out of the ditch. You really do need an anti-inflammatory diet, which is an advanced ketogenic diet, which will eventually heal those villi, those cells to seal back up again. And that is where most of the patients on a ketogenic diet don't require as much minerals. They don't require as much vitamins, because it stays where it's supposed to. It doesn't leak out. Leaky gut, I know, it just fits. I can't fight it. I give up. You guys win. With that process though, the gut lining, when it's working for you, it impresses even me that, wow, look at all the nutrients that got absorbed in that short period of time. When I see people advance to the 1 meal per day and they are like, I don't know, does this really improve? You know, am I getting enough nutrition? A couple of awesome ways to check that out are, again, 2 self-tests that you can check on yourself. Number 1 is a fat-based hormone that circulates throughout the body that has a receptor on every cell in your body. And once that little receptor binds to a cell, it goes into the nucleus of the cell and makes a bunch of proteins. And that hormone is called vitamin D. Okay. So yes, it's a vitamin, but it is one of those vitamins that I think got misnamed. And so do many people. It is fat-based. It is something we can find in nutrition, but it's also something you get from the sun. And a hormone talks to many different cells and does different things in those different cells. And by definition, that's what vitamin D does. So when you look at why is vitamin D linked to your brain, it's because as that vitamin D gets into your brain, gets into the nucleus of the brain, out comes some proteins that have to have vitamin D there in order to make them. Why is vitamin D why is it linked to less heart disease, less heart attacks? Oh, when you look at the proteins that are produced once vitamin D connects to the heart cell, yeah, you need less vitamin D. You need vitamin D. If you have low vitamin D, you don't make those proteins. And that is the story with all of the different cells that bind to vitamin D. So when I'm looking, is somebody healthy? Are they in a healthy state? One of the answers is, how well do you hold on to vitamin D? How well do you circulate vitamin D? And the answer is 50. It should be above 50. I know that the other studies out there look at, and they are giving you the bell-shaped curve for the recent population. But in my family, I'm talking about my children, and I started measuring their vitamin D when they were 11. So from my children, my parents, my patients, my husband, if you happen to live at my house, I'm going to check your vitamin D 3 times a year for sure. We check it right before school. We check it at Thanksgiving break, and we check it over President's Day weekend. And that vitamin D is so linked to the performance of their immune system and their brains that it becomes the absolute marker of health. So that's one marker that you can check on your own. Again, bozmd.com, that same company that checks the fatty skin cells, the skin on your red blood cells, not fatty skin cells, the fat in the skin around your red blood cells, they also check a finger prick of vitamin D. And that has only been out about 1.5 years, but there are about 6 companies in the world that were trying to get that to production and through the FDA. And this company in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, good job, Dr. Harris, did such a great job of their studies that they just sailed through those approval processes. I just want to praise them for being forward thinking, investing in the money to do that so that you don't have to see me. You don't have to see any doctor. You can check it on your own. And if you have insurance, you can go in and get your vitamin D checked. But like most physicians that take Medicare, Medicaid, or any type of insurance, they're going to regulate how often you can check it. So if it's low, they'll say, okay, come back in 2 years. I'm like, my kids will not wait 2 years for their vitamin D to be normal. I need that normal in the next 3 months because I'm paying for college or whatever. that production of health is one of those markers. The other thing that I encourage people to do is I tell them to check their uric acid. Again, another point of care test. Don't take my word for it. Check your numbers. And uric acid is one of the little strips that ForaCare, that the meter that you check ketones and glucose. You can check total cholesterol. I kind of think that's a waste of your money. But uric acid is not a waste of your money. There's a really good book out by Perlmutter. Right, Perlmutter. Yeah, he just put one out on uric acid. Brilliant book. The research on uric acid is very well, it's been out there for years. It is a marker of longevity. When I look at how healthy is someone, and they're like, doc, do I need to lose weight? My body mass index is good. And they've got problems. I'm like, check the uric acid. It is like the rust, not really, but it's like the debris that gets picked up and moved away when you're in autophagy, when you're recycling those broken proteins that shouldn't be between the brain cells. They shouldn't be in your arthritis. They shouldn't be hanging out between cells. Uric acid below a 4.5, and again, this is all in the workbook, so you can look at that there. It really does change the outcome for patients who are improving their chemistry, and you want to measure it. What was the question?
I forget where we were.
Started out with what?
We were with the.
Oh, it was OMAD. So how well are you absorbing
getting
the
enough
nutrient? Yeah.
minerals.
So when I look at metrics to say how much you're absorbing, did they get diarrhea? How well was their vitamin D? And then should you be fasting a little more often, which means uric acid. So those are the three trifecta that I try to use to say, don't just take my word for it. Check yourself, and then the rules are in front of you.
Okay. All right. That was a good one.
You give me an open mic.
I know. Good girl. We've been in we have a lot of people in here with autoimmune that's in our group.
Oh, yeah.
So working on autoimmune disease, they're wanting to know different levels of different types of autoimmune. How do they know? First of all, I always try to explain the science of not going past the 72, that the science doesn't get that much and staying consistent. Is there any other inputs you can give for autoimmune besides
Yeah, this is totally what happened this morning in my support group, is someone talked about. So I think God blesses me when people come to my support group and they tell their stories, because it's almost like I'm getting a whispering saying, keep going, even if I've had some setbacks and I've had, things that don't go my way. And I'll tell you, before you move your family across the country at the age of 50 with teenagers, think about me. Like, oh my goodness, what's happened in the last year? I just feel proud that I can get on a live show once a week, and I'm still putting out some YouTube videos right now. But looking at that, what happened this morning is this man who's been coming. He came because his wife was keto, and now he's a super strong athlete in his late 60s, advanced baseball player. And he's like, well, she's a type 1 diabetic, so I've just been doing keto with her. And he got stronger and leaner, and his brain got sharper, and his energy went up. And you're like, oh my gosh, this keto could work for me too. So he brought his daughter today, and his daughter says, there's this woman in my community who said, there's this anti-inflammatory diet that I've been on, and I've had lupus for so many years. I've been on this anti-inflammatory diet for a few weeks, and I just can't believe how much better I feel, how much less my flares are happening. And it just was like, okay, yeah, continue to tell people that, just like I was saying, when people first get on that ketogenic state, they lower their insulin a little bit, but then as they continue to stay consistent, and the way they know they're consistent is they're measuring the two markers that predict inflammation. They're measuring their glucose and their ketones. And if their glucose and ketones are at the right level, that Dr. Boz ratio will be less than 40. When I have patients show up and say, can I have this reversal of an autoimmune disorder? I never know if any of those cells are still alive, but I never remove hope, because it just takes some stories like multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis. These are autoimmune problems where the immune system is in there attacking those cells, and they're going to keep deteriorating if you don't shut them off. In many ways, CLL, the cancer my mother had, is another autoimmune problem where the white blood cells were deformed. They're not working right because of what's happening in her bone marrow. And as she got less and less and less inflammation, her system was able to heal. So when you look at where that process is to say, well, do I need to follow any of these rules? Is it ever going to work for me? If you have an autoimmune problem, when your body's done destroying one organ system, it picks another. One autoimmune problem predicts the next. If you look at physicians that take a history for pregnant women, meaning we allowed a being to grow inside us without killing it. Okay. That means our immune system was suppressed during that time. And during that section of gestation, it sets you up for autoimmune problems. Number one autoimmune problem after somebody's been pregnant is their thyroid doesn't work right. Why doesn't it work right? Because their white blood cells are now, their immune system is attacking their thyroid. And then comes another one, and then comes another one. So even if you say, you know what, I've had every joint in my body replaced, I have, you know, whatever, autoimmune or this is a terrible life. There's another one coming. So improving that Dr. Boz ratio, getting that inflammation as low as possible. And then praying. I mean, I've seen miracles happen where they are in an advanced wheelchair. They are about to put them on life support to help them breathe because of Lou Gehrig's disease. And that's what they called it. We think it might not have been Lou Gehrig's disease because of how much it reversed, but everybody thought it was Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS because of what was happening, which is another autoimmune problem. And when they lowered that inflammation down to the lowest level, something miraculous happened and the body healed. And I don't guarantee that. I don't want to overpromise that, but I know the only way to have access to that is that the inflammation must be as low as possible. And that is a very advanced state of ketosis. And you can't be there for a day. This took 10 years or more to start showing symptoms. So when I tell, what's your brother's name again? James, that he needs to stay in advanced ketosis as he prepares for the race. And the best outcomes are if you're at 18 months. That's you too for autoimmune disorders. You're not going to get the best outcomes till you've been in a steady, constant state of ketosis for 18 months.
So can they actually get a good DVR if they're already on prednisone? I know Isabel's worried about, she's already on the prednisone and wants to know how to get off.
Yeah, I had this
And she's
exact,
struggling.
right.
Yeah.
So I had this exact same question this morning too, saying if there was ever a patient that these products of supplementing ketones are for, it's for you. In somebody who has insulin resistance, or they're in a state where my prescriptions are causing a higher glucose state. I need ketones in circulation because as soon as ketones are in circulation, they tell your liver, hey, make me some ketones. And that's how people like James, where they get into a state of ketosis and the next layer is easier and the next layer is easier. And now he's making and producing ketones so well that he wakes up in the morning with a ketone level of 2.4 or 2. Great numbers. That's not everybody. They don't push their bodies that hard. When I see somebody whose glucose is high or higher than it should be, you can't make ketones when your glucose is that high because insulin's high, and higher insulin shuts off the production of ketones. So when people say, oh, I just don't make ketones very well, I'm like, no, your immune system hasn't, or your metabolism hasn't been flexed or exercised or stressed. And the way you stress an immune system is a few things that if you're on prednisone, you can try. You can go into a sauna, you can try exercising with weights, or you can fast no more than 72 hours, but you could do that. And that's asking a lot for these people who are really weighed down with some pretty heavy medical problems. So I tell them, exercise your mitochondria by improving the circulation of ketones by sipping on ketones until you get off this prednisone, or at least until you feel you can do a fast for 36 hours. And then you don't do one and you're better. You got to join me every week for a fast.
I'll even say the BHB helped me so much, even when I was taking myself off the Oxycontin and allotted. That BHB was my lifesaver. So
It's fuel,
I mean, it's just, it didn't matter what I was doing. I just felt like crap. I mean, I wasn't having enough glucose for energy or fuel, but I wasn't making enough ketones for fuel either. So
Right.
those ketones are a lifesaver.
You do not need it forever. It definitely has a bridge of time. And then you say, okay, now their metabolism is better. But if they stay stuck there, they don't get out the other side without something extreme happening in their metabolism.
Okay. What time are you?
Yeah,
You're good.
so Angela, we got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, first of all, we want to say thank you to Dr. Boz for taking time out of her schedule to be with us, and thank all of you for showing up, and I love y'all. And I want to say thank you from Lance and I too for bearing with us for class yesterday that we missed when our computer died, and we zigzagged across the state of Florida for 2 days to get it fixed. So I just want to say we love y'all and we appreciate all of you and thank you so much.
Well, I am going to take over the mic one more time to say there are very few people in the Dr. Boz organization that are as well revered in my heart as Tammy and Lance. And that is, they really did embrace, help your community. I often talk, I grew up in this town of 800 people where that sense of your job is to show up in your community and do things that make it a better place. And I don't think there's any better way to teach that than to be in a small town. And I suppose be raised by Grandma Rose that showed up and just kept doing the right thing. And Tammy and Lance have really gone out of their way to embrace people that I wouldn't have the time and space to help, but because of them, they have an outreach program like you. And not only did their lives and health get better and their knowledge about a ketogenic journey get better, but hopefully you benefited. And I just want to say praise to them that they really do give me hope that we can find more of the Tammys and Lances in the world.
We're going to figure it out.
Yes, absolutely. No,
If the technology don't kill us, we got it, right?
right, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And I will see you on Tuesday Lives or wherever you
You're
see
not
me.
being live tonight, are you?
I will, and not tonight. Yeah, it's parent teacher conferences, but he has all A's. It should be pretty good. I don't like he said, Mom, that last B,
See,
I got into an A.
see what that healthy brain did?
Yes, I know, right?
There's hope for all of our kids, right? I just need a do-over.
I know, me too.
Sorry,
I would.
Bug, I hope you're still on there. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.